This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express Monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is the show for the week of September 9th, 2024. And Drew the Disney Dude is back to discuss what's going on in his Disney World and ours. Drew, I don't know if you knew this, but because this is your second time on the show, you officially ranked up from guest of the show to friend of the show. How does that
Let's go. I mean, hey, we had a great conversation the first time I was on, so when I messaged you guys, I'm like, we got to talk about all this stuff. So, I mean, I'm happy to upgrade. I don't know what the third time back will be, though. What do you guys have?
I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll let you know.
All right. I'll look forward to that in a few months.
Maybe you just languish as friend of the show. We're all just friends, and that's you know what, that's okay. And I like being there. Just to remind everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. We really appreciate that. It helps the algorithm and all the numbers. And of course, everything is being discussed on our Discord server, which you can find in a link in the description below. All right, so let's start. Phil, you have a couple things as in your old hat job of reporting on the news. So why don't you take it away? What are we talking about this week?
Yeah, a few things came out this week, and thought at least some of them would impact how people are planning if they have trips coming up, in some cases very shortly and like tomorrow. Some things maybe more how they would impact desires to go in 2025 and that sort of thing. So the first one was kind of out of nowhere. I don't think a lot of people knew this was coming or whatever, but Disney announced that Tron will no longer be using a virtual queue starting September 9th, which is the day this is going to come out, or even, by the time you hear this, it's probably already happening.
Yes.
Also, just as a quick note for people planning it, it is not going to be open as part of the early entry. So some people are hoping that this might take the
line might start at early entry.
I know. I think that, it definitely might. I think some people are hoping this might ease off things off Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and stuff like that, but it's not going to be open during that. So, yes, that was kind of my thought was, I guess, why do you think Disney did this and did this to Tron versus other ones that are in virtual queue, and why do they do it now? And then how do you think this is going to impact planning a day at Magic Kingdom? So, Drew, I don't know if you had any insider information about this, if you knew this was going to happen, or if it caught you by surprise as well.
I had no clue this was coming. I just looked at Twitter and WDW Magic, and there's one guy on WDW Magic, DC Baker, who that dude has everything out within like 30 seconds of it being announced.
He's basically like an RSS feed.
He's awesome. Quite literally. But I saw that he posted it. I'm like, well, that came out of nowhere, like you said. I think that this is a result of their original plan with Tiana's Bayou Adventure, not switching to Standby, because it's more like Tiana's Breakdown Adventure right now. Yeah. So then they were like, how can we get something? Unfortunately. But then they were probably like, well, if we have to shift our plan and, we can't get that standby capacity with Tiana, well, we have Tron. And the nice thing about Tron with the weather right now, with the rain, it's been raining like every day out here, is that giant canopy blocks, the walkway leading up. So you can have a standby line and you're not affected by the weather. So did I know it was coming? No. But am I happy it's happening? Yes. That's about all I have to say about it.
So here's the big question. Do we know where you, like, for early morning entry? So let's say the park opens at 9, you get in the park at 8, rope drops at 8:30. You can start walking wherever, right? You can start walking towards space or loop around and do whatever you want to do. Can you walk all the way up to the tap-in area in Tron and just wait there? Or
that's what I'm wondering. Because
are you going to stop at where like the sign is, like the big Tron?
Yeah. Like are they going to have like a barricade of cast members at the bottom of the area, or are you going to be able to literally like walk up to the front? I mean, I'm trying to think, like, because I'm local, so I don't do like resorts. But I wouldn't be shocked if they just let people walk up to the front of the line, or literally like queue, and then they just let people in at 9 or whenever the park opens. But I guess we'll see in the morning. I'm sure Mike at Blog Mickey or someone will be out there doing.
Everybody will be.
Right? I'll be spectating, as I like to say, but everyone else can go have fun and get there early. But it'll be interesting to see.
Phil, do you have a guess? What do you think they're going to do?
I think they'll let people at least get close, because I don't think they'll want like a mob of people down there, kind of, where it's sort of alongside the exit to Space Mountain and stuff like that. So I figure they'll need to let people at least part way up, whether it's fully filling the queue or not, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
You can, you still can get on Space Mountain, right? For
Yep.
early entry, right? So that's basically blocking Tron. So if there's so many people lined up for Tron, like I'm just going to get on a half hour early so I can be the first person on, that's going to infringe on the traffic to get to space.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah. You can't just have that mob of people there waiting and milling about until they let them get in the queue. So they'll probably have to have some sort of line walking up that rampway. And like you said, maybe just waiting at the gates until it hits 9 and then they'll let them into the queue and stuff. Or maybe they'll even let them in the queue, but not really start running the ride until 9 a.m. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, like you said.
So, Drew, put your brain in younger you, and you don't live in Orlando. What do you do for rope drop? What would be your strategy, now that you're not a younger person traveling with your family? You are now an adult. Like, how would you plan this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the thing that makes Tron so unique is like the ride vehicles, like the position you're in while you're riding in the nighttime experience. So I would still, if I was coming on a vacation right now, I would still prioritize Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for the morning, because and it's also included in that early entry. So you're actually getting that benefit for Mine Train, whereas Tron, at least right now, at the time of this recording, it's not there. So I think right now I would just stick with Mine Train. And while people are going to Tron will stand by is new, I feel like that there's kind of like that FOMO where people are going to want to go over there. So let them go over there. If Mine Train, maybe benefits from that, do that. And then if you can just hop in line during Tron fireworks, that's, one of the best nighttime experiences you'll ever get at a Disney park in my mind. So I would definitely save it for nighttime.
Now here's the thing. How long is the line going to be once nighttime hits, right? Like that's where everybody's going to go. So Phil, what do you, this is how I was thinking about this today. Was you rope drop Mine Train so you don't have to pay the single pass lightning lane for it. Then you do your normal rope drop stuff after that, right? Maybe you keep going around counterclockwise and hit Haunt Mansion and Pirates and make your way over to Mine Train, the Big Thunder Mountain. And then you buy the lightning lane for Tron. Right? Like you buy it, then you could select the evening time if that's what you want to do. You're paying for that, but you're also probably not going to be in an hour and a half line waiting for it too. So I think that makes it worth it. That would be my strategy. What would yours be, Phil?
I think it would be similar, especially if it's we're a family that goes once a year or something like that, where I'd probably be willing to drop the lightning lane single pass for Tron to guarantee that we get on at night with a not too long of a wait. So that's probably what I'd do. If I'm a more frequent person, I'd probably just monitor wait times and kind of see what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, it'll be interesting to see because, we've talked about this before, but with virtual queues, like everyone can kind of try it. And if they get one, they get one. If they don't, they don't. But like, you kind of know the wait's only going to be, not that it's a walk on, but it's not too long. But are people that have ridden
minutes.
Yeah. But are people that have ridden it 10, 20, 30 times already, are they going to wait an hour and a half, 2 hours to ride it? Probably not. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the wait times are because obviously not everyone is willing to ride it. Not everyone fits in the seats or finds them comfortable. Not everyone wants to go that ride that goes that fast. So I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see what the wait times for it are.
I mean, we'll find out in like 3 days, like what the trend lines are for it. But it's gonna be a fun thing to watch. The one thing I do want to point out is like Tiana's, we always thought it was going to be like 2 weeks and Tron was always going to be the virtual.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Disney said, right? That it's only going to have the virtual queue for a short period. But I'm assuming like Drew was saying that because it's been unreliable, they don't feel comfortable moving it off the virtual queue yet. So that's what
do you think, Drew? Do you think this is now a permanent virtual queue for Tiana's? Because even if, let's say they fix everything tomorrow, does it stay on a virtual queue?
I think that Tiana's, like the nature of it. I mean, if you look back at Splash, right, it was kind of always referred to as one of those highest capacity rides. Like you have 2 logs of 8 people dispatching every 15 seconds. So I think that if I had to take a wild guess, if they can, I mean, we don't know if they're going to take it down for that winter refurbishment a year early because, like, I think that people who follow the parks know that Splash went down for that winter refurbishment. So we were maybe thinking January of 2026 it would go down, but they might take it down. Who knows if they'll push that a year before now. But if not, then maybe if they fix some of the issues by the time the marathon weekend is over in January, maybe by January, right at the beginning of the new year, it'll go to standby. But to answer your question, I don't think it's permanent. I think the permanent virtual queue, just because of the space, could be Cosmic Rewind because there's no space in there to hold a 90-minute long line. But with Tiana's, I think it's just a matter of whenever they figure out whatever is happening, which I'm not going to speculate on because I truly don't know.
Yeah, that was because that was where I was going to go next was Cosmic Rewind. It's like that's one of my favorite rides on property. It's an awesome like I've never danced on a roller coaster before, and I do that every single time now. I love it. So my family does too, right? So we always have a good time with it. And as much as I like the virtual queue, like I'm a big virtual queue fan, but it really feels bad that when the one time when we went down last Christmas, I wasn't able to get a virtual queue at all. And like I'm a pro at this. It was because the day before was stormed, so then all the locals came the next day versus that day because of the Festival of the Holidays, and so everybody was chomping at the bit to get those virtual queues, and I wasn't able to get one. I mean, we went on with a lightning lane, individual lightning lane, but like I would still love to have a standby feature because that's the type of ride that if we have one of those vacations where it's like we're not really marching to a specific plan. I would go back on standby and ride it like 2 or 3 times a day. You just can't do that with Cosmic. There's still songs I haven't gotten yet, and I would want to pull that roulette wheel and see what I get.
Yeah,
so Phil,
not to cut you off, and I don't want to. I want to hear Phil's thoughts too. But if I was Disney, I would do Cosmic Rewind as a hybrid virtual queue, right? I understand that, like the inside queue, it's not very big, and they don't want to have people outside in the heat. But there's also times, like literally as we're recording this, like right around this time right now, this week. This is the quietest week of the year. There's no need for a virtual queue during this week. So then just say, hey, we're going to do standby, for right now. And then put it back on a virtual queue if you need it. They even did that with Web Slingers when it first opened over at Avengers Campus. And I was like, oh, so this is their thought process. But that was Disneyland management versus here. So, those things matter.
Now, here's the thought. Here is our friend Matt, who does before and after games on his Diz Happenings podcast. Do you think, and this is maybe not a before and after, but when Test Track opens next summer, which is now a segue into Phil's next topic that we wanted to talk about. Actually, no, we have one other one. Sorry. Yep. Does Cosmic Rewind come off a virtual queue when Test Track comes back? And does Test Track come on a virtual queue, or do they both go on a virtual queue? Or does Test Track just open?
Do you want? I want to hear Phil's thoughts because I cut him off before and I feel bad.
I don't know. I think maybe they'll do what the plan was supposed to be for Tiana's, that it'll do the virtual queue for a short period of time so that, the locals and the media and the vloggers and stuff like that, get their turn on it and aren't, the lines aren't super long for the first 2 weeks, but assuming it's got good reliability, which it should, but we also thought Tiana's would because it's not a new ride, that then it would go away quickly and they would keep Guardians. Cause I think they like Guardians. Like Drew was saying, it doesn't have a huge inside area. I think they like that if people want to ride it more than once, they have to buy the individual or the Lightning Lane single pass. I think that's another thing management probably likes.
That's true.
So that would be kind of my guess, is that they do the short term one, but then it goes off it and it becomes part of a tier 1 with Lightning Lane multi-pass or whatever.
Why? I mean, like, I like the idea of hybrid. I don't like the idea of the hybrid being unknown whether they're going to do it. Because I when I'm at Disney World, I'm like, I need to know, are you on a virtual queue or are you not? Because I need to know if I have to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like would be the 1 p.m. drop for the virtual queue to be optional. Meaning, if it's always a virtual queue for the morning, and if they either don't get enough or doesn't sell out by a certain amount of time or whatever, then it just goes to stand. Like those all dribble out, and then eventually just goes to standby, and then everybody can go in the evening. So I'd like that. However, speaking of lightning lanes, there might be another option, Phil, or a rumor.
Yeah, there's a rumor around, and it started first that it was going to be for Disneyland, and I guess now there's a rumor it might happen at Walt Disney World too, and it's all based on there being some code that people found in the system. So I have no idea if it's actually going to happen, but obviously it creates a lot of fun discourse and stuff like that. But there's a rumor that Disney is going to debut what they're calling like a Universal Express type line skipping offering that I guess is going to be called Lightning Lane Premier Pass, so LLPP, which would allow users, if you bought it, you could skip, I guess the idea is each ride that's on Lightning Lane, including the single pass ones, 1 time per day, and you wouldn't have to make reservations or anything like that. You just show up, you tap in, you use it. No, you don't have to worry about timing like that. So it's sort of like more like the Express Pass, or almost like a mini VIP tour type thing happening where you just get to skip the line whenever you want it. Which it's an interesting idea. I know there was rumors even before they launched Lightning Lane Multipass that this might be the direction they go. So part of me thinks this is just legacy from they had the code from when they were thinking they might do it and somebody just found it now. I don't know. I can't imagine they would be complicating everything by adding another system on top of it, but maybe they do this and it's just a super limited offering that you have to stay in club level or something like that. I don't know. So I don't know what you guys are hearing, what your thoughts on this are, and if you think it's a good thing and if you would ever buy it.
This caught me totally by surprise when I saw it from the tweet. Like, I didn't even see it posted. I'm like, what is this? Because you had all of the regular insiders, like even like Len Testa showing up. It's like, this is stupid and impossible. I've never even heard of it. What is going on? No, I've heard no rumors of this whatsoever. And I like to point out, Len Testa didn't hear anything about anything opening in Hollywood studios at all before Monsters Door Coaster got announced. But in any case, they have this product in Disneyland Paris and in California, right? This is like existing. They've had this product. Like everybody got surprised when Genie Plus came about, where we have to pay for Fast Pass Plus. Like you go to any other Disney park on the globe, you had to pay for some sort of skip the line process, right? So this is not like new at all. Disney does not do a good job with their coding and their programming and their IT, so it wouldn't surprise me if this was just a variable somewhere that somebody found that just kind of sat there. But it also wouldn't surprise me if this was a real thing either. I mean, I doubt it just because of the marketing thing of it, like adding just one more thing on there after you get all these articles about Disneyland being or Disney World being too expensive. People are going in debt to go to Disney World. It's just not a good look to offer even more premium services. What were your initial impressions, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys kind of nailed it on the head, right? I think a lot of times when people are, using like bots or whatever they use to get, this data and bots can pick up on it, right? There's always that chance that it was just left there and someone messed up and it's not supposed to be being seen, obviously. But the thing is,
let me point out. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
So what happens is when a app gets updated, you could put the old API calls from the app that you have, and then when you download the new API calls and variables, you basically run a program that compares the two, and it will highlight the differences. So somebody's basically running the code side by side, just doing like, a search essentially and finding out the differences. And when there's something new, they read through it and they go, oh, what is this? And then that's where the rumor pops up from. So It's not really like bots as we know them combing through it. It's just somebody literally just comparing old to new. And that's kind of some of the stuff that's popping up. And it could be just random stuff that people are not putting in, or they just cut and paste code from somewhere else to put it in here just because it was easier. And then it kind of showed up with an app push.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're good. It's actually good. It's actually a really good explanation of like API and all that stuff, because a lot of people aren't familiar with like how these things work. But I think the thing that makes me think that this is real is like they have the graphic for it, right? So at some point it was being considered, whether that's now or years ago. And also the fact that if Mike at Blog Mickey is reporting that on his own sources and own information,
it's got some juice to it.
Exactly, right? Because like the original thing was Disneyland. But then if Mike dove into, whoever he talks to and they said, yeah, this is happening, that would eliminate, the possibility of it being old if he's doing that right now. So I think the fact that he's reporting on it coming to Disney World on top of Disneyland makes me think that that's it's current. And just the fact that, that image was found recently. So it lines up and I wouldn't be shocked.
No, so let's assume it's happening, right? So let's get on to, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I personally, more options, the better. For me, there is definitely, a high spend profile. I posted this on WDW Magic forums that, almost everybody buys Genie Plus or a multi-pass now, right? It's not expensive. It's $30. Almost everybody buys one at least one day of their trip. I would have to imagine, or at least the attempt to, or they think about it, or whatever. It is the cost of an extra $100-something or $60-something for a couple or their family is not that much big of a spend for some line skipping for the day while you're at Disney World, right? And if I recall, originally, I think somebody reported that Disney thought only like 20 to 25% of the people would buy Genie Plus when it first came out. I heard that number somewhere. I forget who to attribute it to. So Disney's like, okay, now we just made Fast Pass just a boatload of money because now everybody's buying Genie Plus. So now what is the price point for something that's in between? So people that have a lot of money to spend, people that get the club levels, people that go to deluxe resorts, people that get a 10-day hopper pass that go to all the restaurants that they possibly can, Disney has all this information. There is a Goldilocks spot where people are like, I would spend this much money to go on every ride and not have to worry about managing it. But I am not spending $4,000 a day for a VIP tour, right? There's a difference between Phil, what did you spend last year for a pass for your family? Like for us at Christmas time, it would have been 30 times 5, so $150, right?
Yep.
That's like a half a meal somewhere, right? It's not that expensive. But I wouldn't spend $500 on something like this or what would it be, like $300-$400 per person times 5, so like $1,000 would be the price point. So what do you think the price point is, Phil? And is there an audience for this, you think? Because I think there is.
Yeah, I do think there's an audience for this sort of thing because I know a lot of people don't like the complications with Lightning Lane Multipass and having to book everything. And people, like you said, especially maybe just a couple or just really well-to-do families that are willing to do this and maybe don't want to do the full-on VIP tour. I think it's a small group, and I think this would definitely be targeted at that. And like you said, a lot of people would be like mad and be like, "Oh, Disney's only catering to the one." Like, yes, this is just for the 1%. It's not going to impact 95% of guests, and that's okay. I was doing some numbers, and I said, so for a VIP tour, they range from $450 to $900 an hour, and a minimum of 7 hours. So depending on the time of year and that sort of thing, it would cost you between $3,150 and $6,300 for the tour. That counts up to 10 guests, though. So if you had 10 people, the per person is between $315 and $630 per person per day. So my guess, it has to be kind of less than that.
Yeah, because you're not getting the tour, you're not getting the personal person.
Exactly.
Personal person. That's not a word.
Yeah. So my thought it was somewhere between $200 to $400 per person.
About like 20% less or so, right?
Yeah. And then probably more at Magic Kingdom, less at Animal Kingdom, and that sort of thing. More if it's a hopper and that sort of thing. But yeah, because we also know what is.
I don't think they're selling hoppers. Like you have to buy one for a specific park.
Or yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out. And at Universal, I mean, I think the single use ones are as cheap as $89 and up over $200. So it's going to be more than that probably, but less than the VIP. So that my guess is that $200 to $400 per person per day, depending on the park and time of year.
What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I'm just nodding my head because you guys are like saying everything that I'm thinking. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, the more expensive it is, I mean, that for everyone else, that's better, right? Because that keeps the line shorter. I mean, if you look back to when the parks reopened, after COVID, and there was no Lightning Lane or Fast Pass at the time, the standby lines, even with the 6-foot distancing, and no one would be in the vehicles because there was only like one party per row, the lines weren't bad at all because there was no Fast Pass at the time. So
but there was significantly less people.
Yeah, for sure. But just
that's a big impact.
Definitely. But just having less people in the Lightning Lane makes a massive difference. So if they are going to do this, I mean, you have to make it a premier experience, and that's why I'm assuming they're calling it Premier Pass.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, I would only do this and get rid of the other one because, like you said, when everyone has it, no one has it. What benefit are you getting? But I mean,
I don't think they're not getting rid of the old one.
They definitely won't.
They just rebranded everything. They're not tossing that out the window. That would be really stupid on their part. It's a waste of time.
No way they get rid of it.
I mean, like a lot of people are concerned that there's going to be a lot more people in the Lightning Lane, and we're going to go back to like the pre-DAS changes where the Lightning Lanes are just full of people. If they price this right, this is going to be very minimal amount of people in the Lightning Lane, and those people are probably already buying Lightning Lane already, and probably getting a good amount of rides with it also. So I think Disney, from a business perspective, I think it's smart for Disney to kind of cater to those people that will spend an extra $800 for the day just to get on every ride and not have to worry about it.
Yep.
But before we move on, let's make a prediction because I just popped in my head. If this does come to fruition, will it be park specific, Drew, or will it be like if you buy the more expensive one, you can use it at all 4 parks?
I would imagine it would be park specific. I just feel like,
my thought,
I just can't see them allowing. I don't know, because I feel like if you're gonna, like time wise, if you're wanting to go on every attraction, you wouldn't be able to do multiple parks in a day. I mean, if you have a tour guide where they're taking you backstage and you can go on multiple rides, that's completely different. But like you guys were saying, that comes with that price.
With this accepted on that one.
Yeah, with
Oh, you know, there'd be a bunch of bloggers doing that. We bought this and we're going to go on every single ride in every park in one day. And
yeah,
Phil, as one person, I mean, let's say it's $200. Like, for just if I'm just paying for myself, that's not a lot of money to like have a express pass for every ride in the park. I would go down for a down and back trip. And like you and me, let's go down. We're gonna buy an express pass, and we're gonna see how many rides we can do in a single. Or if we could check off all of them in a single day, that would be fun. I wouldn't do it with my family because I'm not spending $1,000 for us to skip lines for the family. But for like one person or like a couple, I mean, that $200 seems cheap to me for that. So you're paying $400 extra to get everything. I would think that would probably be a premium above Universal. So I would peg it at like the $300-400 mark. I think
probably
that's my opinion. Anyway.
Yep. So the last topic I wanted to cover, and this is kind of thinking about planning for next year and that sort of thing. And it hit me when I saw a tweet from Boardwalk Times, because they had like kind of the logos, all four of them. So it kind of went over that the new offerings for 2025 will now include, and this is another one that I think came out of nowhere that nobody saw coming, that Disney announced that a new villain show is going to be coming to replace the Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy over in Hollywood Studios. It was set to open in summer next year, so summer 2025, and the Racing Academy will close on October 7th. So it kind of hit me like, okay, well, this is another new offering, kind of came out of nowhere. We talked about it even leading into D23, so I guess this kind of helps lead into our next segment. But like, you know, we thought they might actually talk more about entertainment at Walt Disney World, since that's supposed to be the big thing to draw people in next year. But, you know, with this, they now have a new villain show. We know people are excited about villains. I'm sure this will be some sort of kind of test ground and see which villains people react to and stuff like that. They're also going to have Test Track 3.0, like we talked about. They're going to have the new Zootopia Better Together show in Animal Kingdom. And then they'll have Disney Starlight, the new nighttime parade at Magic Kingdom. So each park will have something new. And kind of just wondering, it's not any one big giant thing. It's not like they're opening Galaxy's Edge or something like that. But collectively, that seems like a decent number of new offerings. And is that enough to draw people down that maybe we're on the fence of, do we do a trip next year or do we wait a year? Are these four new offerings, do you think? And obviously, I'm sure there'll be other little things, but, you know, seeing these four things, is that enough, do you think, to draw people down?
See, Phil, you're a big FOMO person, right? Like every time like a new offering comes by, you're like, FOMO, I want to get down there, but I can't, whatever, that type of thing. And I'm usually not a FOMO type of person. Like I will go and see it when I eventually go see it, or I'll watch it on YouTube. I'm okay with that, right? I'm not going to be able to see every new thing. I'm not like Drew, where I can just drive to the park anytime I want and check things out. However, we haven't gotten to, we'll talk about this next week. You know, I booked a trip for next year. I've been talking about wanting to do it in May, and this timing and school and, you know, my wife's job really didn't fit for May. So now it got pushed to July after a bunch of like sports and stuff like that for my kids over the summer. So now I'm like, I'm smiling on this, even though my wife absolutely hates it in the summertime down in Orlando. But I'm like, well, if it's late July, almost all of this has to be open by that time, right? So if they're targeting summer of 2025, I should be able to see all four of these things in the last week of July. So when I saw this, I'm like, that incentivized me to book at a certain time next year. So I'm curious to see if maybe some of the bookings might be a little shallow at the beginning part of the year, or is this a draw for a busier summer? I don't know. Would this influence you picking another trip next year, Phil?
I don't know if it would be enough to do another trip that we weren't planning on doing. I mean, our vacations for next year are still up in the air. We don't know what we're doing. Disney's always in the mix anyway. So this certainly, like you said, might make me lean more towards like end of summer versus beginning of the year or something like that, knowing that there's more likely to be more new things by then. So
I mean, like in the past, you've done vacations that were like this last 2 years were like your first full blown like Disney bubble vacations that you've had in a couple of years, where let's say that maybe you were doing like a Florida trip and maybe not specifically Disney, or maybe you just stay at a resort before you go on a cruise or something.
Yeah.
Would something like this say like, oh, we are definitely making a like the 4-ticket deal you talked about last week made you add on 4 days at Disney before your cruise versus maybe like 1 or 2. Is this something that would steer you to it if you were like in the vicinity of Florida?
It did make me think, if we were down there, say say we wanted to do one more geared around Epic Universe or something like that, and we wanted to get some Disney in.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Is it enough though to get me to do 4 days at Disney, or would I pick and choose? And then it made me think, well, which of these things am I most interested in? And like, which of the parks would I pick? But yeah, it definitely, I think if I was going to do a Florida trip and maybe I was like, well, maybe I'll do 1 day at Disney or something, like having multiple things in each of the parks does kind of make me push that maybe I'll add on more days than I was originally going to plan or something like that. So I don't think it's enough to do an entire trip that I wasn't planning on doing.
Yeah.
But it might make me do one, add a little more Disney or add a day onto it or something like that.
So I guess it's working for a lot of people. Drew, you are a content creator. So I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. One, does this make you happy because you have something to talk about next year?
Yes.
And two,
yes, very much so. Yes.
Yeah. What will you be doing when all these things come out? Like, how do you attack things that aren't like exciting, like a brand new attraction, but you've got a couple reskins and a couple of like entertainment things? Like, does this force you to kind of spread your wings about the property rather than like, camping in front of?
Yeah, for sure. But really quick, I want to touch on what Phil said, because I think that what Phil just said about Epic Universe is exactly why Disney is doing this. I don't think they necessarily want people to book their own shocker, right? I don't think they necessarily want people to book their own vacations for this. I think they just want people to come stop by the resort while they're down here for Epic Universe with these things. And not that these are major by any means, but Epcot's getting the Spaceship Earth Lounge too, and Magic Kingdom's getting the Pirates of the Caribbean Lounge. So not that like anyone's going to book a trip for lounges, but it's like if people see something on social media of, a pirate animatronic or the bird animatronic in the Pirates Lounge, those are little things that are marketable, right? In the world of social media that we live in. So I think that those things could definitely, make people, add a day or two onto their trip to come check out Disney. And then that boosts Disney's attendance just from piggybacking off of this, 100-acre theme park. But to answer your question about content creation, I mean, personally, I'm always going to prioritize my Disney stuff because that's just what I prefer. Not that I'm not excited for Epic Universe. I'm very excited for it. But it's just one of those things where you just cover what's happening at the time. And then I think I'll be covering, the construction of the projects being built, like, the Cars area, Magic Kingdom, or the show building going up for Monsters Inc. While all this is kind of happening in the meantime, entertainment wise.
So I think we talked about this a couple months ago, Phil, where we were talking about like opening of Epic Universe, and now Drew's got me on a tangent, and my brain is going overdrive here. Disney, this basically says Disney is basically I want to say giving up, but giving Epic Universe their space. Yeah. And so instead of like trying to compete and try to draw people away from Epic, they're just trying to get like, well, you're going to be down here anyway for this monster of a new park. Give us like a day or two, right? They want to take bites out of it. So that goes me to think that for my vacation right now is booked with rack rates and no discounts. I suspect we'll see a large amount of interesting offers going around for both Florida residents and out-of-state guests for Disney World next year. We haven't seen them. We should start seeing them, I guess, for like the spring. I guess what is like the October, November timeframe. So they'll be coming up soon for like the spring. You usually do them like 6 to 8 months in advance. So I'm really curious to see what's going to be floating around here. I'm really hoping for, even though I'm doing hopper tickets, I'm hoping for like the free hopper tickets that are coming like this holiday season for something next summer.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Drew, out of all 4 of these things, which one are you looking forward to the most?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean,
pick
like
one. You got to pick one.
Test Track is the ride. But I would say I'm most excited for the Villain Show, which might shock some people because like Test Track's my one project that I have to document right now. But I think that live entertainment is just as crucial to the parks and attractions are, because you actually have that human to human interaction. I mean, obviously, it's the character, right? But it's still that interaction. And there's some rumors floating around that this Villain Show is going to be, very interactive with the audience, which isn't a shocker by any means. But I think that this is their perfect test for villains, right? So kind of spreading out capacity in Hollywood Studios back into that area of the park that doesn't have anyone is going to be good. And then the show itself will probably be great. So I'm very excited for that.
What about you, Phil?
So I think I'm most intrigued about the Villain Show to see how it goes. And I also think it could be a testing ground. I think Matt mentioned this on his podcast, like for like how dark they can go, because I think that's kind of they're kind of wondering about for Villains Land, like, is it going to be more the funny side or the scary side or something? And they can kind of probably play around with that and use this show a little bit to see how do people react to maybe some more scary elements or funny elements, that sort of thing. So I'm intrigued about that. I'm probably most excited for Disney Starlight, the new nighttime parade, just because I love nighttime parades. I mean, I think, that I just prefer them to the daytime parades, and it's been so long since Magic Kingdom's had one, and I'm just excited for this one. So that's probably the one that, if there's anything, if I'm going to add on only one day or something, it would probably be something that got me able to see the new nighttime parade.
See, I don't know if I have to pick one. I'm probably picking the Villain Show, just because anybody that says the Racing Academy was their favorite thing and they're just tired, sad to see it go, they're lying to you.
You haven't seen anyone say they're going to chain themselves to that.
Yeah, no. But yeah, the Villain Show looks really cool, because I just hopefully it seems that I get a sense that it's going to be a high production show and they're going to go all out for it. And if you remember, this building's been empty for a while. It used to be like a villains like dance party or something like back in the day.
It's like a full circle moment. Yep.
Yeah. The one thing I'm most nervous about is the Disney Starlight. Like, I want to be excited for it, but I'm really curious what the logistics are going to be, like nighttime and fireworks and happily ever after ending. Like, there's way too many people in the hub for that thing to be going around. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, obviously the logistics for it will be fascinating.
I'm terrified for this. Like, it could be amazing. Like, if in a bubble, that would be the most thing I'm excited for, because again, I love nighttime parades versus the scorching sun on you watching the Festival of the Fantasy Parade. The one thing I love the most, though, Drew, and I've seen your pictures, I've seen the pictures of other content creators, is I said this to Phil as you were right before you came on. I love the look of the building a test track without the canopy up. Right, like it just looks so cool. They better not put anything in front of that building. Like, it's like gorgeous, like retro, like 70s industrial look that was carried over into the 80s. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and it'll be a shame if they covered that up with anything.
I think we're good on that front, thankfully, but we shall see.
Yes, we'll see. But yeah, I'm good. Okay, so it's been a month, Drew, since D23. We wanted to get you on right after, and scheduling stuff had gotten in the way, so we got you a month later. We've got so many different things. I don't want to go through each of the things and start talking about reaction, because those takes are no longer hot; they're cold, and we've had plenty of them. But I do want to talk about, like, some of the, like, you were very, like, you made your you made a lot of comments on Twitter about some of the emotions that are going through. So we'll start at the top. So it is Saturday night. It is not Monday morning yet, and you see the big announcement for Cars coming to quote unquote Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. It wasn't quite as beyond as we thought it was going to be. But what was your take of the whole when you first saw that initial reaction?
Yeah, so I know that like Braden and Mickey Views had talked about this, a while back. And quite honestly, my first thought seeing Mater pop up on the giant screen, like 100 feet away from you was, oh, Braden was right, good for him. The one thing, though, I will say, just taking myself out of it, just strictly observing what happened in that arena, and I was there, so I can say this, is that there was not really any applause when Cars was announced compared to everything else that we got. Like, the stuff coming to Disneyland Paris, and, keep in mind, everyone there was there, these are domestic parks fans, right? But yep. Like, even like the Lion King area coming to Paris got a larger, more positive reaction than Cars coming to Magic Kingdom, and that was 36 hours at the time before they even said it was replacing the Rivers of America in Tom Sawyer Island. Thing with me is like I was on board with it at the time. I was like, oh cool, we get 2 new attractions. I'm also big on like, is this not, if it was a Radiator Springs Racers clone, would I have mind? No, because I think that's one of the best attractions Imagineering has ever done. But at the same time, I think that a big part of Bruce Vaughn coming back to Imagineering, for those who don't know, Bruce Vaughn came back. He's the president, chief creative officer. He oversees everything. And very quickly picked up on that they're using Cars as an IP to get, people to recognize it. Like, kids and families, right? That's much more marketable than the Rivers of America. But the fact that they were leaving Radiator Springs to try to attempt to make it fit in Frontierland, and immediately I liked that because it was original. So even though it's attached to an IP, it's the same reason I like Tiana's Bayou Adventure. There's the original characters, the original finale, the outfits, all that stuff. And I picked that up immediately from the Cars thing. So I guess from the audience reaction, just taking myself out of it, not there. There was some cheers, obviously, but it was very lackluster. But to seeing, I guess, the project itself, I like that they're taking it outside of Radiator Springs and at least allowing some Imagineer creativity to happen rather than just a clone of Radiator Springs again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not a huge Cars fan, but my kids went crazy for it, and I think a lot of the people. We're going to talk about the reaction stuff, so I'll wait. I'll wait for the reaction section about what we've learned since the actual day. What was the vibe in the hall when Villains Land got announced? Because, like, I mean, I was asleep when it happened, but like I watched it, and it's just like it was deafening what was going on.
It was. There was such a long applause. I think it was right after Josh showed the concept art because like. They did like the teaser and then he went off stage. They did the performance and then he came back on stage and he showed the concept art. And there was such a long applause for that concept art that like he literally had to start talking to get people to stop clapping. And I could tell like you can tell when Josh is in presenter mode, and then not that that's a bad thing. He's a great presenter in my opinion, regardless of what you think of the man.
You have to be in presenter mode when you're talking to tens of thousands of people.
Exactly. But like there was like a moment where he was like laughing and kind of taking it all in, and I think that even caught Josh off guard. Like I don't see Josh often at all, but the next time I see him, I'd be like, was that reaction to Villains? Like that's one of the questions I would ask him was the reactions to Villains, even you guys knowing that this is going to be loved more than what you thought? Because for that applause, like I said, to go on for that long, I think kind of caught him off guard. And he even made a comment off script because I could see the teleprompter and he's like, I can tell that you guys are excited. So that was definitely one of the really, 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 really cool moments.
Shouldn't that have been like, to me, that's like an obvious thing because that got a huge reaction when it was Blue Sky 2 years ago, right? Like, that he should have known that was coming.
Yeah.
Maybe he did, but it's nice to feel that.
I think just when you're in the moment and it's actually, and it keeps going, it still kind of catches you off.
It's
you can't
overwhelming.
be fully prepared for it. Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's a good thing that it was overwhelming because now it's like, you can't cut the budget for this. Like, if anything, you need to add to the budget just to make sure we get everything. Not that we know what's going in there other than merch, food, and 2 rides, whatever. And I don't think at this point it's worth kind of dissecting concept art. That's something that's a couple years away at this point.
And to cut you off really quick, that concept art is very Blue Sky, so we should not be looking at that concept art at all.
It's vague as all heck right now. It's like, hey, look, there's a roller coaster up here. There's a dragon. I'm like, I think the artist just saw like this might look cool. This might look cool.
What can we throw in front of 12,000 people? Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. But beyond like the presentation, like after Saturday, what were the vibes around the whole show? Is it worth it to attend? Did you enjoy yourself? Or are you going now for forever and ever? What was like the whole show to you?
I mean, I guess I always believe in being very transparent as a creator. I mean, I was there on media, so I did not pay to get in by any means. They invited me to the Honda Center for the Experiences Showcase for that one night, and I had a ticket to the whole convention center to see the entire show floor. So what I did with my content was free, at least for the expo itself. I had to cover everything else. But if I had to pay for it, the next time they did it, if it was on the same level, I wouldn't even think twice about it, because they raised the bar themselves by having a 12,000 seat venue for these showcases. And they raised the bar themselves by expanding the show floor and calling it the most immersive ever, all the PR talk. And I was very skeptical. I mean, if you go back to the video I uploaded with my predictions, I was kind of saying that I was very concerned about this being too much music rather than announcements. And I was very wrong. And I'm glad I was wrong, because they delivered on the announcements, no doubt. Regardless of what's replacing what and what could happen and all that, they delivered on the announcements. So, I mean, the show, absolutely. The vibe was even better after the Experiences Showcase, and the Imagineering Pavilion was packed with people trying to see the models. So would I go every time going forward? Absolutely. If they keep it on the voice crack, if they keep it on the same level of what they did this year, absolutely.
So Phil had a good question here, and I'm going to ask it for him, but this is Phil's question. Was there anything that you saw on the show floor, maybe snippets of conversation you've heard, or anything else like that that's not getting any notice or discussion at all?
Yes. Very glad you asked this. I was literally thinking about this in the shower earlier, because it's one of those things where Disney is talking about it. They've talked about it since, this is another video I did, not to talk about my YouTube channel nonstop, but
no, plug it right now.
So youtube.com/DreWithADisneyDude, right? But very quick, history on this. So in November of 2021, I was at IAAPA. I don't know if you guys know what IAAPA is, but it's the giant amusement expo out here in Orlando. 40,000 people a year. And at the time, this was years ago, but in November of 2021, that was the first presentation that Josh did coming out of COVID. I think at the time I was the youngest person in that little room there, because everyone's there in like, full on suits, and these people are like CEOs and executives of all these massive companies. I'm, the 18-year-old kid at the time in shorts and a t-shirt wanting to see the, chairman of Disney Experiences. But I look back to that, my voice cracked again. I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I look
You're
back
excited.
to yes, good. I am. I'm very passionate about this stuff. But I look back to that presentation specifically because it was right out of COVID. And I think about what Josh said, and he was like, we're coming, out of COVID, our train is starting to move again. He was kind of comparing it to like COVID was the train stopping, and they got off, they took a look at everything, then they got back on, and the train started going down the tracks again, and now the train is going very fast. But one of the things he talked about at that presentation, he was talking about, Walt Disney World's 50th at the time, and I was like, we know all this. But the one thing that stood out to me was he was highlighting what Disney was doing with the research and development. And that was Project Kiwi, the free roaming little Groot animatronic, Project Exo, the exoskeleton suits. He was very adamant on the characters being brought to life in real and natural ways. And no one is talking about it. So just recently I did a 30-minute long YouTube video on it, and it's like the least viewed video I've done forever. It's like no one cares about this, but it's so crucial to what we could be seeing over this next 10 years when they're talking about this investment, right? So when I got to the show floor, to come back to your question, they have an entire Imagineering research and development corner with even Lanny Smoot was there. Lanny Smoot has over like 150 US patents. He's in the National Inventors Hall of Fame. This dude's a legend. If you guys don't know who Lanny Smoot is, after you finish watching this, please go look him up. He's very cool in person and just an incredible person and Imagineer. But they had the little BDX droids. Those, if you guys haven't seen the BDX droids, were at Disneyland, like all these projects, and they're highlighting them at the expo. And they have the BDX droids walking around the entire time. They had clips of Project Exo and Project Kiwi. Like they were showing them in front of people at this expo. So when I'm seeing that continuing to be highlighted under Josh's leadership, even though we might not be seeing these things happen, immediately stuff's happening behind the scenes. So I think that if there's one thing happening,
a dancing Groot and all these other little robots just for like, high school projects.
Exactly. And they brought Groot to California Adventure last June for a playtest. So like they brought this in the park, and now they have that data and they can move forward with it. But like, if there was anything at the Walt Disney Company right now that no one's talking about, that's kind of driving me insane, it's this commitment to the research and development, because those things could easily be a part of these, like that could be Sully in Monsters Inc. Land, right? Like Project Exo, that could be a brand new version of Sully. Or they could do Ursula. Like there's so many little things that make these experiences Disney and that Disney difference. And I think and hope that all this research and development stuff that we've been seeing since 2021 is a reality over these next 10 years.
Phil, what is the one thing that you always say is missing in all the parks since the pandemic? And that's in-park entertainment.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, like Streetmosphere and stuff like that. And like, this might be a way to lead to it. And, as you're talking about it, I keep thinking about all the applications in Villains Land, specifically, like with obviously some of the villains are literally larger than life, but they might have like henchmen or, like the crows flying around, like there could be a lot of cool applications in there that maybe they feel is more cost effective and stuff like that than having, the citizens of Hollywood and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, just think like, Epic Universe is going to debut next year, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. All the theming work and everything else that they do, all the flybys that we're seeing, and all the like for example, let's just look at Monsters Land. I mean, like you're going to have these costume people running around. They're going to have kids dressed up in makeup as Frankenstein and all this other type of stuff. It's going to be great. I just hope, and I want to think, because I'm an optimistic person, that Disney realizes they're going to lose this round, but instead of Harry Potter came by and they're like, we're going to answer this with Galaxy's Edge, which kind of landed flat with a lot of the way they did things. I want to say, hopefully they learn their lesson from that. It's like, if Epic Universe comes with all these lands, we've done that too, but we got to one-up them with the technology that we're using. And I hopefully, you could go back to Galaxy's Edge and you can have these like just droids wandering around all over the place. I don't know how they could do that with some of the crowds, but like, they've done things like that before, but if it's more like an everyday thing, I think that just kind of adds so many different things. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to go back to when we go next to the reactions, right? Because we alluded to it before. You were decimated when they announced on that Monday that Rivers of America is going. Phil just said goodbye to it, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to say goodbye to it again, Phil, next year, because I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. about Rivers America. So what were your own personal thoughts on that? And I know you were devastated by it. Has that changed in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah,
Like,
it
where are
actually
you at
has.
in your headspace?
So
Okay.
one thing about me is like, as I've matured, I'm only 22. I'm not gonna act like I'm, God's greatest gift by any means. But as I've matured and learned from all my mentors in this community, one of the things that I've learned is just being wrong is okay, or saying something stupid is okay. And I went to Fox with my friend Theron, who runs Everything You Need to Know Info. Very grateful that he invited me out there to go talk about, everything at the time, because that was right when I got back before I got sick and, some stuff happened in my life. But I said that at the time, this was, a month ago at this point, that this cards area coming to Magic Kingdom would be the worst change in the history of Disney parks. And at the time, I thought I was thinking clearly. I was not thinking clearly. Like, I try to think clearly and then say something, because like it's emotion and reaction versus thinking and logic, right? At the time, I thought I was thinking and saying something logically. And now I'm looking back at that, I'm like, was that me? Like, why did I say that? I could talk for, a good hour about why I've kind of changed a little bit. Not that I'm happy that the Rivers and Tom Sawyer Island is going. Like, if I was in Josh's position, I would have not got rid of all of it. I would have just got rid of the back half of it. Because like there's so many things from like if you connected the Big Thunder Mountain walkway to Haunted Mansion and you had a walkway there, like that's great for crowd flow and guest flow, and that makes a better guest experience. So it's like, I think that, sitting on this for a month and realizing that the comment I made was very stupid, and that, now that I'm kind of realizing I have an influence, so like if I say something, it causes an insane reaction, whereas I'm just interpreting it from me as a fan, but I have to look at it from people see this stuff, so you don't say something like that regardless of what you think. But like I said, I'm not happy to see it go. I'm going to be very sad when it closes. If I could save part of it, I would. Obviously, I can't. I'm just Drew. But my position has definitely changed on it, because I think that there's this slim part of my brain, or not a slim part of my brain, but the optimistic side of me that tries to, because like I love Splash Mountain, and Tiana's turned into become my favorite ride. So I'm kind of looking at it from how have I interpreted change in the parks. So is Tom Sawyer Island, like that one little overlook on Big Thunder Mountain, my favorite spot in Magic Kingdom? I'm not just saying that. That little spot is so good. If you go back there, I think that you'll appreciate it. I went back there a year ago, and it's been my favorite spot since. My favorite ride's Tiana's. People are like, you have so many favorite places. I'm like, no, there's a difference, right? You have a favorite ride and a favorite spot and a favorite food, But I think that if Disney...
Look, you're allowed to have many favorite things. It's
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
There's no rules.
It's like this one guy in my comment section was making me out to be like a criminal because I've, saying that this is my favorite spot in Magic Kingdom, when I literally had a tweet from a year before saying it was. But like, I know we're, on time.
You don't have to prove yourself.
Yeah, I know. It's just
on the internet.
It's just annoying sometimes.
Don't go down that route.
Yeah. I've learned that. But like, the part of me that hopes that this turns out incredible is kind of like what we talked about earlier. They're taking this original approach, going outside of Radiator Springs. So all of that is 100% original. There's been some similarities in the concept art between, Planes, Fire, and Rescue. So if it's like a copy, then that's not original. I mean, it was when the movie was made, but not now. But if they go away from that and they make this 100% original, that's, obviously good in my mind. But if they kind of make it like a Lake Tahoe or Yosemite National Park vibe, where you have geysers, triggering when the race cars go by, and, maybe they take the current, Liberty Bell dock and make that like an overlook. So they keep that area. And because like I was talking about this with Jack at DSY Newscast, but that's like an elevated area right now, right? Because you can get off the boat on, the mid-level and the lower level. So they're not going to fill that in. Like, you can't make that a gradient. It's impossible. So I think that's why in the concept art, that's there. But when you're walking into this new reimagined section of Frontierland, if that's there, and that is, the canyon overlook over the park overlook, and you can see the entire area, and then, maybe around the corner, you can get a peek of Villains Land. Like, that would be really cool. So I think that...
Let me stop you right there, because you're talking about, like... sight lines, and I love sight lines at Disney parks, and people like to complain about other things. We don't need to go into that, but for this specifically, if you like, one of the things that's going to be there, the weenie of that area, is going to be the Piston Cup like mountaintop, right? It's multiple different pieces of concept art. It's going to be there in some fashion, right? That's going to be the thing that draws you into that area from farther away. And if you look in the concept art and everything else, it clearly lines up with the Liberty Bell dock, or that building that was currently there. That view will be directly from the hub as you walk down through like where the old Christmas shop and Sleepy Hollow, and then obviously Hall of Presidents. That's going to just open up. Yeah. And one of the things I mean, I understand why people are sad and they're fighting. You don't like things changing, that whole type of thing. I'm always a person. I love change.
Yeah.
Like if Pirates and Haunted Mansion, my 2 favorite rides ever, if for some reason they go on a 5-minute wait constantly and people aren't going into them, yes, get rid of them because they're not doing what they're supposed to. I mean, I don't think that would ever happen, but like
Hopefully not.
hopefully not. But again, like there's a better use for the land in my opinion, and while it is a beautiful area, Magic Kingdom just needs more capacity, right? So this from an operational point of view, I'm an engineer, so I think like that.
They quite literally have to with how popular it is these days. There's no other option.
So what I think people are missing, like they're talking about the natural beauty of water and the kinetics of it. I just want to, well, again, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, Phil, but like, there's waterfalls in there. There's flowing water through there. There's ways to walk. Some of the walkways in the concept art, and granted, it's not going to look like that, right? It's just concept art for another park, actually. But like the walkways, there's just trees, and like people complain there's not enough trees in Magic Kingdom. They took all the trees; it's all concrete. Blah 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 blah. But like they're adding a forest over here, and if you're walking around the whole thing, basically counterclockwise from Haunted Mansion all the way back to Big Thunder, that might be a really cool spot to like just kind of stroll and watch and just be closed off from the rest of the park where it's not going to be as noisy and congested. And I think people are discounting what could be there.
Yeah, that was me though. To be fair, so I've tried to. I reflect
I appreciate
on it.
Your journey, right? I appreciate your journey on that. I mean, I trust for some reason, and I don't know why. And I've never met the man, you have, but like I trust Bruce Vaughn to like do the right thing when it comes to that. And the only reason why this will not come out the way, and I quote Scott Gustin on this one, it's like they need to make this perfect, right? They have to hit this out of the park, right? Yeah. Phil, like the biggest mistake would be just screw this up. If they screw this up,
I mean, that's what we've talked about in the past. It's like they can do this. They have this decision. They're able to do it. And we've talked about like there's business reasons why it makes sense and that sort of thing. But they really only get to do this once, and they got to do it right. And they can't, when they find out that it's costing twice as much as they thought just to take out the river and stuff like that, they can't cut the budget. It's got to be done right. It's got to be done so that people are more excited about what's there now versus thinking it was a poor replacement for what happened there. So hopefully they know that and they do it right. And like you said, it seems like since Bruce came back, he's hired a lot of people. Like he seems to have been able to loosen the purse strings a little bit, and hopefully it'll be done right.
Yeah, and I think Tomorrow knows that he can't be like Chapek and start like slashing things, because this is basically like if he does anything to this area and villains after the reaction that he got at D23, it's like putting a big like giant like scar down the face of like of Magic Kingdom, of Disney. Like you can't just disrupt this like major area of it. It would just it'd be disaster. I've got 2 other questions for you, and Phil, I think do we want to play the game, or do we want to go right into the DVC engagement after this? Because
let's just go into the DVC engagement.
Okay.
And,
I want to say one thing really quick about
go ahead.
About Rivers of America. This wasn't my thought. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I think it was Jack who said it. DSMI Newscast. He said, if you look at every castle park, right, they all have the Tom Sawyer Island and the Rivers of America. So like that's what we've been used to for almost 55 years now out here. But this makes Magic Kingdom unique. And then I'm like, yeah. You're right.
It's always been a copy, right?
Yeah. So like if this is done right, like you guys have said, and like everyone is saying, if they just nail it and it gets the budget that it needs and it gets the love that it needs, then Magic Kingdom becomes unique. And we're always asking for uniqueness, rather than this copy and paste. So maybe this is kind of like a reverse, rather than the new things being copy and paste, it's getting rid of the original copy and paste. And that might be really cool. So that's why I'm trying to keep an open mind with it. And I know I'll have fun documenting it regardless.
I think we're all doing that too. We're trying to keep an open mind and understanding why it's happening, even if we are sad about some of the elements that are going away for sure.
100%.
So here's my first question. This might be a quick one. Do you have any thoughts, or maybe you've heard anything about what was almost announced but pulled at the last minute for the presentation? Any guesses there?
Well, there's certain things that like I am told that I know is like, I've heard that a new character is coming to Epcot next month. I can say that because I can, right? I don't know what that character is, but like I'm specifically told that. So if a new character comes to Epcot next month, then I'll be like, oh yeah, that person was right. But there's other things that like, again, I'm mentioning Jackie, and he talked about that Moana ride coming to Adventureland, right? I thought that was going to happen because we have Moana coming out in November. and that's got to make like $1.2 billion. These it's like Inside Out. Like I'm surprised we didn't get any mention of Inside Out or Moana or
too soon on that one though.
Yeah.
I think that surprised everybody. That's why.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's just I feel like Moana, they could have done something, unless Moana is saved for that back half of this decade. I feel like that's another thing that people are forgetting is this is just the first.
There's a round 2.
Exactly. This is literally just through the end of 2029. What's happening from 2030 through the end of 2034, right? So they could easily do a Moana land over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, or Scott was talking about Zootopia at Hollywood Studios and having the train connect you to where Star Cruiser is. There's so many things that could be happening on the back half of this decade. So I guess
we could do a whole show on like what people are realizing. Like, even Len and Jim on their show have started saying that this is only the first half.
It is
not the back half.
This
right?
is, yeah.
So, and I think people like are not realizing that.
No. People think the Villains is opening in like 2032. I'm like, no, it should be done by fall of 2029 at the latest. Like I'm expecting everything that they've announced to be done by the end of 2029. Like I think that Disney is even set on having this done within 5 years.
That's what they said. I mean, things could get delayed and stuff, but if that's the intention, maybe it pushes to 2030 or something. But yeah.
I mean, I've went back and looked for the moment of shovels on the ground to opening. And I think the longest land was Galaxy's Edge at 4 years.
Yeah.
Toy Story Land was 3. Pandora was 3. This one's just going to be a bit more complicated because it's relying on Cars Land being built first, right? Which is also relying on doing all the canal work and water retention work, or whatever. The one thing that's going to kick everything off is when they start bulldozing all the trees for the laydown yards outside of Magic Kingdom to start laying all the extra work. Last thing about D23 and announcements. Do you think they held anything back for the D23 Brazil event in November?
Ooh, I feel like there's got to be
Brazil coming
something.
To Epcot.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think anyone's remembering that either.
If Brazil's coming to the World Showcase, you got to announce it in Brazil, right, Phil?
I would think so. I don't know. I'm really confused. I don't know if confused is the right word, but like uncertain, like what they're going to be doing at this Brazil event. Is it just like a fan event, like a con, like for lack of a better word, for all the fans down there? Or is it like a D23 marketing event where they're going to have announcements and stuff like that? I don't know. I mean, it could just be small things. It could be about a movie or something that's coming out that's going to be set in Brazil. Who knows? But I agree with you that if they're going to do Brazil in Epcot, it obviously makes sense to announce it at D23 in Brazil and not have announced it, last month.
Yeah. I think it'll be just like those random little updates because like we got the original like roller coaster vehicle design for Cosmic Rewind at D23 in Japan out of nowhere, way back when. So it could just be like those random little things. And like you said, Phil, are they going to do presentations here or is this literally just a show floor? Is Imagineering going to have a pavilion? But those are the things that we'll find out very soon. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yep. A month and a half or so. All right. So we're going to go back to the DBC engagement reminder. Everybody join the Discord and join the conversation of what we want to do. 2 weeks ago, we asked the question: when you find out something is closing forever at a Disney park, does that impact your planning? Either encourage you a trip, or how you if you have a trip planned already coming up, how would you tour the park any differently? Like Phil took his time on Tom Sawyer Island this trip, but he wouldn't plan a specific trip for it. But then again, he was going to be there anyway between now and closure, no matter what. Any of the recent announcements have the biggest impact for you? So we had a lot of members of the community talk about that. But Joe, I'm going to ask you first, even though that you are a local, this question doesn't really apply to you. If there was something in the parks that were closing, let's say, out of the blue in the next day or two, and you weren't a content creator, right? Because you would race anywhere for content creation, right? Because that's what you do.
Yep.
Would that be something that you would always make a beeline for? Like, how does that impact the way you do, your relationship with the parks?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just taking the fact that, because like before I even started doing, Disney content, I was a massive fan just, for my parents taking me to the parks and growing up near Disneyland. If it was something like the Rivers of America or Tom Sawyer Island or Dino Land, absolutely, because I genuinely love Dino Land because it's so wacky and you don't expect that to be in a Disney park, but it still is. And if you go inside of Restaurantosaurus and Chester and Hester's Dinosaur Treasures, like some of the most themed things that Disney has ever done, but no one likes them, but would I go down for a day or two if I could? Absolutely. So I guess if I was still living in Dallas, Texas, where we just moved from, 6 years ago, if I could fly down for 2 days to come say goodbye to these things, I absolutely would. But that's also me being a diehard fan of the things that not everyone cares about. So it's hard to say.
I did this for Happily Ever After. We did like a weekend trip on Labor Day of all things, and we got to see it before it closed down for the final time. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I think it's similar things that we've talked about. I don't know. It's what would make me plan a trip out of nowhere that I wasn't planning to take. I'm trying to think of what it could be. It'd probably have to be like the Haunted Mansion closing, or Jungle Cruise or something like that, or Spaceship Earth. But
it would have to be an iconic ride.
Yeah, it'd have to be like something iconic. But we did, things have motivated us to, like, if it's something we were on the fence about. And one that comes to mind is we did do an extra trip, my wife and I, to see Illuminations before it went away, because that was our favorite show. We loved it, and we booked the dining package, and our server wound up heard we were there for it and got us those like I'm celebrating buttons with the final illuminations and things like that. So we've done things where it's more like, okay, if we're on the fence about something, it's pushing us to go, or maybe instead of waiting 6 months, we'll go in 3 months or something, to say goodbye to a number of things. So things that are, I guess, more personally connected to us, like in that case, it was Illuminations.
That makes sense. I mean, there's certain things that can definitely push up a trip, right? It's hard to, at least for us, Drew, it's hard to kind of spontaneously go to Disney World when you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So that's kind of hard to do that. Phil, you want to go over what the community?
Yeah, I mean, kind of building off that, Mama 6 had said, and she's up in Canada with 6 kids and stuff like that. That when they hear a ride is closing, it really doesn't impact their plans because they can't just on a whim go down. But they are really looking forward to Tropical Americas, they said. So when that opens, that was kind of the announcement that got them most excited. So that might encourage them to maybe take a trip. Or their trip would be planned around when that was opening, that sort of thing. Wheezy said the same thing, that it would impact their touring style more than making a trip for it. Mentioned that they know that when Dino was closing, they made in this past March, they made sure they went and rode that and made sure they saw It's Tough to Be a Bug and stuff like that, where maybe they wouldn't do that if they didn't know it was closing. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are saying. And he's saying he has a trip coming up in December. He'll make sure he rides the steamboat and stuff like that. TL Madden said kind of the same things. One thing he mentioned that I thought was interesting, though, was there have been things that have gone away that they didn't ride, and he didn't like push his kids to go on. He mentions things like he thought the kids might find Ellen's Energy Adventure boring, so they never rode that. And now that it's gone, he kind of looks back and says, wow, I wish I kind of made my kids ride it, because now it's gone and now they can't. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, that you never know, that was your last trip with something around. So maybe if you haven't done it, even if it's, you only have to do it once maybe, but maybe do it once. Things, like this past trip I took, my kids hadn't done It's Tough to Be a Bug. I made sure they did them and stuff like that. Doxy posted about for the 50th anniversary, she added a day onto her trip to see Happily Ever After before it was gone. So that was something that they said. And I think a couple other people mentioned that too, where maybe they would switch around days of their trip or kind of adjust kind of the timing of their trip, or add a day or something like that to see things more than have a ground up trip that they weren't planning to take.
Funny thing about Happily Ever After, the last time I saw Happily Ever After was in 2021 in Labor Day, because my wife refuses to stand in all those crowds now during the pandemic. She just hates crowds at this point. I'm not going to force her to kind of do that. And not that I regret it, because it's going to be there, but Phil and I, we're going to talk about this next week, Phil, probably, but like we're finally going during a non-party season next year, and that's going to probably allow us to catch this fireworks show a little bit better than the week before Christmas.
Yep. And then just a couple of people did list some rides that they thought would impact at least their touring plan, if not a separate ride. Ryan W. mentioned the Haunted Mansion, Tower of Terror, and Muppet Vision. And Herdomaniac mentioned the People Mover, the Monorail, and Haunted Mansion. I think that's interesting too, something like the Monorail, like, because every now and then those rumors come up with like it needs to be replaced and the beams aren't standard and blah blah blah, and like
that's never going away.
I don't think so, but if something like that, if they said they're closing that or getting rid of the Contemporary or something like that, I think people would make a trip to see those like kind of iconic Walt Disney World things.
Are you going to go with Lumpy's last one, or you're close to it?
He mentioned some similar things, Tower Terror or Matterhorn over at Disneyland, that if that was closing,
he's a West Coast guy.
Yeah, he's a West Coast person. And that they made a point of seeing Muppet Vision the last couple times, just because it seems to always be on the chopping block. So they do make sure to see that whenever they go.
Drew's Muppet Vision going away? first or second?
I don't
Hollywood
think
Studios?
so. But again, we're talking about the next decade, so even if it survives right now, it might not survive the next 5, and that's what I'm concerned about.
I'm pretty sure it's gone, but I don't think it's gone this round, right?
Yeah.
Because you have 2 spots. You have that spot, and then you have Animation Courtyard. I don't think they're putting Monsters in Animation Courtyard because I think they're saving that for a much larger IP, which you have Zootopia, which may or may not do well domestically. We'll see. But what was the other announcement at D23 that probably got a lot of people cheering? Do you know what I'm thinking about, Drew?
I mean, there's a lot of things.
It's a movie. Incredibles 3. I can see if Incredibles 3 does 1.5 bills like globally, I think you get an Incredibles land at Hollywood Studios. If that revives that IP from like the early aughts, I think that's coming back with a vengeance at Hollywood Studios.
And that's not to go off topic here too much, but like that's exactly why talking about the next 5 years after this 5 is so important, because Disney could already be drawing up those plans right now, and we're not going to know about them for 5 years.
Well, they have to be drawing them up right now to execute them in 5 years, 100%. Because like Monsters, you still see Monsters merch. Like there hasn't been a Monsters anything other than maybe some shorts on Disney.
Yeah, the Disney Plus show, the Monsters at Work. Yeah,
but like, it still sells a lot of merch. Even the time between the last movie and any of the Disney Plus stuff, it still sells a ton of merch. So that's the reason why they're building an area for this. But I don't think there's enough of a fandom, at least right now, to build like a Galaxy's Edge size land. But like a courtyard with an attraction attached to it would be like absolutely perfect, I think. All right, we're going to wrap this up here, Drew. I just want to remind everybody, magictravelonmain.com, so check it out. Or if you forget, like, where you could find this podcast or where you could find Discord, that's all on there. So it's a nice landing page for all of that. And probably if Phil and I ever get unbusy, a future spot for any blogs or anything we feel like writing about, maybe our trip reports or something like that in written form. But that being said, Drew, we really appreciate you coming on again, friend of the show. Where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, so I'm on X/Twitter at Drew Disney Dude. I go by Drew the Disney Dude, but my username is just Drew Disney Dude. And then YouTube, Drew the Disney Dude. Those are my main two home bases right now.
Awesome. Well, again, really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we don't have to wait as long, and we can get you on here the next time something weird pops up, and we can chat about it for 1 hour and 11 minutes and 28 seconds. Phil, did I forget anything that we need to mention?
Just a reminder of our social media accounts. We're everywhere at the DBC Pod, whether it's YouTube or Twitter X or Instagram or Facebook, all that stuff. We're all at the DBC Pod.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.